Okay.
Council meeting of the Common Council, City of Plattsburgh Infrastructure Committee meeting at 5:04. Roll call of members, Council Kelly,
Here.
Council Talon,
I'm here.
Council Moore here, Mayor Rosenquist. Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the September 6th, 2022 infrastructure meeting. Council Kelly, second by Council Talon, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is carried. We'll now move to Public Works discussion infrastructure report.
Okay, well, we'll keep this pretty tight here. Emergency water project, I'm going to give you an update here in detail, but things are going very well. And like I said, he'll give you all the statistics of where we're standing. We continue to do at the Flag Field and Park and pick up the beach. We're driving different. And then we're also starting on the cleanup. We just starting fall. They're going to have going right into fall cleanup season here. We're also doing sidewalk work currently over on Club Road. And then something that's already just remember everyone's out very hard is paper patching. We are out every day, so weather permits, doing potholes, and all the wires.
Yeah, so that goes to a lot of the times I'll hear my office and say, hey, can we send a crew out here? Or we just did a couple, Johnson maybe, or some folks said, hey, can you send a crew over? No problem, you know, we appreciate it. So if you do hear somebody or folks listening, if you have a district that's in pretty bad disrepair, we'll do as best as we can.
We have a lengthy list. It's just not at random. We did do a big section of South through last week, and yeah, we'll continue on with it. So the people know we are out here doing stuff. Capital work activities, obviously, emergency project, New York Road construction, I would say is probably in the punch list stage. We have a couple small items left. And then a few order that was not necessarily around. Beacon Street market design phases, maybe we probably give it a little update of those. Not the staffing, not take this time, and then miscellaneous item is still hanging out there is the heat pump at City Hall. The hardware we use in to schedule it. That's what I have to get is.
You want to get into the discussion on the stone?
Well, that's what I didn't put on there. What I'd like to do is I would like to maybe skim over snow removal, give the Lake Country Village update and allow me to explain 2.4. And then we'll do some removal last. That work with you guys? I have no idea that was so rolled out here, except I gotta get over there.
Got a quick little PowerPoint presentation that's going to pull up for me here. So this is going to be our update as of first thing this morning when I got in, did my rounds, put this together. Next slide. So since July 6th, which is when we started the project, we've had 71 working days. We have now completed 100% of our water main installation. So over 20,000 linear feet of water main have been put in the ground and have been put into service. We have a couple of them that are being chlorinated and we're going to be testing it, but it has been pressurized and getting ready to go. We've installed 107 new water services. So we're looking at approximately 70% of the water services have been completed. With what we have planned to get done for this year, there's only 6 more water services remaining to get the Lake Country Village area 100% onto the new mains and getting the whole AC pipe out of service. So we're doing really, really good, like Mike said. So currently right now, Maine Road, Maryland Road, Massachusetts, Dakota, Kentucky, Louisiana, mains have been taken out of service, so those are no longer active. Go ahead, Beth. So this is just a quick little map. Basically, anything in red is what we still have left to do. Anything in blue is work that has been completed. Anything in green is work that we get completed. Either 2018 as part of Main Road or last year when we did Ohio and then the Fort Brown. Just a couple of pictures here, guys, putting in service lines this morning. Next one, Beth. Another picture.
Oops, sorry.
No, that's good. So what's next? So basically, once those 6 service lines are done over on Iowa Circle, we'll be able to take New York Road, Kansas, and Iowa Circle out of service. So we'll shut those mains down. And then we're going to start getting into, we've actually already started the road rehabilitation. Louisiana Avenue and Kansas Avenue are going to be full depth reclamation. So there's a big machine. It's a little bit different than the milling machine. It acts the same way, grinds everything up, spits it back out onto the ground. They doze it, regrade it, and then table on top of it. Kentucky Street, Iowa Circle will be milled and resurfaced, just like you see us doing on a lot of the other city streets. Main Road, Maryland Road, Massachusetts, and Dakota. We're basically boxing out any of the cutouts that were done in the asphalt, repaving them. We're going to let it sit until the end of next year, and then we're going to come back and mill and resurface those roads. The reason we're doing that is because of the differential settling. We were very careful about not running vibratory rollers over the new main for fear of breaking the old main. So what we'll do is we'll let that sit, let everything settle out, and then we'll come back and pave everything next year. Other rehabilitation that we have to do, there were some driveways that were torn out because they had water services going through them, or driveways that got blown apart when the water lines broke. So we'll fix those with binder this year, come back next year, hit them with top course, give them a nice finished driveway, just get them through the winter now. Same thing with the sidewalks. We're going to do temporary asphalt sidewalks. Anywhere where it got tore out, we're just going to put asphalt in. We'll come back next year, tear the asphalt out, and give them actual concrete sidewalks. Topsoil, grass seed, we're going to do as much as we can this year, weather permitting, and then anything we don't get to next year, we'll finish in the spring. And then one of the other things we're going to try to get to this year that may get pushed off until next year is pulling the old flare hydrants out and then pressure grouting the existing AC lines so that we don't have to worry about groundwater getting into that system. And then later down the road, we end up having to tear those lines out, training 20 years worth of water out of that system. All right, guys. I got a couple more pictures. So this is this is after they ran the machine across, the regrading the roadway. They'll come back in and they'll pave over the top of that one. That's after they rolled it. So left side of the road has been completed. Right side of the road still has to get done. Thank you for that. Oh, one more. So that's basically what the what Maine, Maryland, and Dakota, and Massachusetts are going to look like. They came through, they paved the crosses where the service lines were in. They'll come back through, they'll dig this section out through here, and then they'll run a paving machine through there, and then we'll come back and we'll mill and resurface next year. Any questions? Fair work. Thank you.
We're going to start with 2.4, which is a revision of the capital project. What we're asking for here. This is, let me provide a spreadsheet. I don't know if that had to do all the packages. What it is our wheel loaders. We have a fleet of 5 wheel loaders at City Plattsburgh. We would like to replace 3 of these. One is 9 years old, one is 14, one is 18 years old. Now is a good time, primarily because trade value is high, but also repair costs are high too. What was provided in the spreadsheet is strictly the repair costs for the materials involved, not include labor repair. If you were to take a look at the trade value and repair costs, the motors we currently have, we're about $400,000. We can replace all Old loaders for $544,000. The good news is they're all 100% reimbursable through CHIPS fund. And give your worksheet. So if people are worrying about what we have for CHIPS money, CHIPS consists of CHIPS, State of New York, EWR, Twin Roads, and POP funding. We have 4.37 million plus available for that. Funds that are already committed to capital projects, we have 1.1 million. We would like to spend 544, and that still leaves a remaining balance of 2.7.
Okay, I had a question on the breakdown of CHIPS, State of New York and tourism. Because I know CHIPS, we were always had not enough to do our paving, CHIPS one.
So
I was just wondering of that 4 million.
on the 4 million, we have 715,000 in CHIPS. Okay, and you're gonna notice in this resolution, we're asking to spend another 115,000 for our compact track program. There's a couple of reasons. Number one is long lead time in this equipment. So the earliest we would see a piece of equipment will probably be February of next year. They won't give us 3 loaders at one time. You'll get one, you'll probably get one sometime in late spring and the summer. But that the only portion of when we say CHIPS, maybe or either there are touring around the pop. The only thing we can buy equipment with is the actual CHIPS money. The other funding has to go directly towards road buildings. So that's the nuance for that. And it is kind of like I said, we have plenty of funding in CHIPS to cover those costs.
Yeah, I was just curious too, how we ended up with needing to replace all 3 of them at the same time.
Majority of, if you look at the loaders here, so we have the 624J and the L9, which are the 2 older loaders. We have basically one's 15 years old and one's almost. The cabs are typically what's wrong with these loaders. We have a D and E loader, which are older series loaders. They're actually in better shape as far as cabs. They're rotting out. Those are the ones we actually do the salt shed. We don't need to put these in the salt. So they just mount over time. So you're talking about a complete cab off for those. The K loader is in better shape, so the battery box, fenders, can be pins, no bushings on that one, steps. But now, like I said, with the resale value of them, it's your appropriate time. A lot of municipalities, small ones in particular, they'll flip these loaders. They'll have one wheel loader. They'll probably flip it every 2 years because it carries so much value force. With these, probably should have done
Okay, so just put on the back burner.
It was one of those things where they're halfway decent. I probably should have brought you some color pictures. Everybody have to see what's going on with it. But the cabs, engine wise, pretty decent shape. Transmissions, hydraulics are pretty sound, but pins, bushings in the lower section, and then the cabs themselves are really a mess. And we're starting to have some electrical issues. The L90.
Yeah, resale value on this as well.
The resale rates, yeah. And that's I want to make a point on a resale. Resale is a locked-in cost. That's the minimum from one of the vendors. That's not to say that we can't, before a loader shows up, put it on Auctions International. If we can get more money for it, they have no problem with us doing that. So those are the minimum trade values that you're seeing on that sheet.
So what's the lead time on these?
February would be the first one, best case. And then we're probably talking spring and then late summer.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Motion to second.
Oops. Entertain motion to authorize or remove this to the regular meeting. Council Kelly, second by Council Fallon. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Yeah.
Want me to start that off?
I don't know that. I know what that is.
No problem.
News to me.
Yeah, we get a lot of complaints and snow clearing proceeds through the winter and, we kind of handcuff ourselves, we don't give ourselves an adequate amount of time to clear roads and push them back. And if we continue to handcuff ourselves like this, we're gonna continue to get complaints. We're gonna have cars parked in the roadways. Every place where I've had experience with snow plowing, you do a second run where you push the banks back. And because of the very short window that we have, we are not able to do that. And once the snow hardens, which usually happens after a storm, it's a low pressure system, it gets warm, everything is soft. You try to attack that a day later, or 2 days later, it's hard and you're done. You aren't able to do this. Most places deal with this by taking cars right off the roads all winter. Okay, we're very lenient on that, and there is a parking situation here, so we are looking at something like that. Well, I know could probably convince Public Works that would be a good idea.
I've got all sorts of ideas.
This year, you know what? I'm sure that most people would like it. I want to interject here. Mayor Rosenblitz is not suggesting that we ban cars all year round. Please, like,
That'll be all over.
yeah, well, I know. That's what we're right now. Probably doesn't come out of this now.
But that's how most places do. But anyway, I'm really open to ideas. I think now's the time to start discussing this about how we're gonna improve our snow clearing in the winter time. And I know you cannot do all the streets in 6 hours, so I think we need to come up with a better plan going forward.
Yeah, this is also just to capitalize on this. This is also a conversation that was brought up sometime last year during snow removal time and expressed the frustrations that I've heard and multiple people have heard about removing snow. Can't you guys do better at removing snow? And Councilor Moore's right. Yeah, we turn the snow ban lights on and everybody's supposed to be off the road by 12, and those folks who didn't get the memo, they're still on the road, so we spend that time removing the cars, and then it's not until 1:30, 2 o'clock when we're actually out clearing the roads. And then at 8 a.m., people are right back on the street, and it does not 6 a.m. So it does not allow us enough time to adequately remove the snow. I hear it over here, certainly looking forward to hearing it again, I guess, come winter time, but really alleviate that concern. Councilor Bob also had some commentary on some ideas that she's seen, Councilor Moore as well. Again, I'm not an advocate for saying a complete removal of vehicles off the city streets between November and May. But there is a balance in there somewhere. I know Councilor Bob made the recommendation of alternate side parking ban. Councilor Moore is a full parking ban until the lights go out. And I tend to lean towards that just because I see the amount of work that's needed to get out there and remove the snow without having to wait the next night to clear the other side of the street. And if there's a massive snowstorm, then we are out there multiple days in a row trying to clear streets with vehicles off the street. It just becomes prohibited. So those are the ideas, I guess. Those are the options to throw out there. I mean, I guess there's
We're not reinventing the wheel here. Okay, everything that everyone just said, I mean, there's multiple ways to do this. Of course, the city of Plattsburgh, in my opinion, does the most difficult way. Which is not unusual. Alternate side parking, I live in communities that had alternate side parking, it's very effective. It works well. The seasonal parking ban is fantastic, love it. Okay, that would be great. And when we say seasonal parking ban, it's seasonal parking ban. Well, let's talk about whether it's alternate side parking or seasonal parking ban. It's during, the evening hours. So when our night crews are out there, it's not all day long. That's the difference.
Well, actually, just in Albany, they do, it's 24 hours at a time. So from the time it starts, it's on for 24
And
hours.
again, different communities have different.
Like what I'm saying, so you can't do it where you would have a full day. And
You could have the whole day and night, but if you did alternate, you know, say you did alternate side parking. And it was only from the hours of 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. That would give us that window to clear. That's a great idea. Seasonal parking ban, the same deal. No parking on the street from in a certain window. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. The parking lights. I remember I lived in the city when the parking lights were installed, and I didn't have a problem before the parking lights were there, and I didn't have a problem after, because you got creative and found places to park. And people are not creative, I guess, all the time. So, open to any suggestions that trying different, options. I think downtown is a tricky one. I think the lights will never go away downtown. Parking lots and stuff like that, you have to use parking lights and allow those people to get in those parking lots. And then off-street parking, but during the snowstorm, it would be really nice now to have people that park the street in the middle of the day. We're trying to get things, because again, we need to get out of cars. But people have to get to businesses, people have to. Pick people up, driving people off, so that.
Well, it can be an ongoing discussion, and so whatever we do is gonna be better than what we're doing now. So, the only thing I would have about alternate sides is like, down in Albany, it's perhaps a little warmer than here. And I've seen that gets frozen pretty hard overnight, a lot of times, and you're done. You get that one big opportunity to go while everything is still soft, and you can work with it, and then once it hardens, and you're doomed for the rest of the season. And you get all these complaints about, and rightfully so, that as the streets get narrower, especially on the two-way streets, everybody gets pushed into the middle. So I don't know, I think we should seriously look at trying something to make things better for this year.
Something else to think about there too, though. A lot of the older neighborhoods don't have adequate snow storage. And that's a big one. That's the reason why you're seeing that they're narrowing the street, because you just can't, you get, there's a constant battle between the homeowner and the sidewalk and the road by plow. Okay, and again, you start narrowing out. That is the tricky part there. Just, I think this is like 2 foot on some storage. Yeah, that's not enough. Should be more.
Yeah, some streets have medians, some
And
have.
some have none, and that's the other thing, we're responsible when you get below 2 feet, go around and pick that snow up. So that's an all night activity. And you guys what my night crew doing, they're driving around picking up snow, and taking it away. That's a good portion of this, that night, doing your right now.
I think I hear on both sides, I hear the alternate side and the full street ban, not the seasonal ban, but the on the street ban. I'm hoping that there's certainly a balance in here where it's not going to find up the council to figure out how to make some improvements for this season. We're bringing it up now because we know that snow's about to be here. Like, yeah, right. Like, let's not wait.
Well, like I said, whatever we do is going to be a big improvement, so.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, there's no reason we can't try something different.
I mean, the easiest one to try would be to extend the duration of the parking lights. Okay, that's an easy one. So you put the parking lights on and leave them on. Then we would define a.
I think that's a good approach because people are used to not being on the street with the parking ban. We don't have to try to educate people on. Today's the 3rd, so park on the odd side, and it's an even day, so park on the even side. So I wouldn't even not even my head around that right now.
It's really easy. You start going once. I did it Syracuse. Yeah, I had to get the first one.
I think no. And I don't think many people can tell if it's on trying to figure out. I think people are just right now used to if the parking lights are on, you're not on the street. That's reasonable.
So, we could definitely try it with the lights. The only thing we want to do is work on signage. So I think we have a conversation with a smaller group and come up with that and come back and get into this.
Yeah, because that would cover the problem of, sometimes we have a 2 or 3 day event.
So we typically, Counselor, we leave the lights on. The problem is during that 2, 3 day event, people still park on the street during the day. It's the hours. Like the lights might still be on, but they can still park on the street in the hours all day long. So then we're still trying to weed it out. We can't push that during the day. That is the hard part. But yeah, we leave the lights on for 2, 3 days at a time.
Yeah, because the signs take from midnight to 6 a.m. So your 6 hour window gets cut down because at midnight, even though you're not supposed to be on the road, you still have a 2 hour time frame that it takes speed to get to the car. Get the tow truck there, get the tow truck, to get here, pull it. So you're really looking at from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So we really only have a 4 hour window to do things work to actually plow.
With the existing sign, yes.
Okay, well, maybe we'll come up with something. Hopefully,
Yeah, I think
we try.
it certainly might be out. My office's goal is to get something to present to council for approval in November. I don't want to wait much longer, obviously. Because we're getting it. So, we're good.
Perhaps alternatives that could work on some streets in the day.
Yeah, the only problem would be like confusing people, like I know, like, North Catherine and, Oak Street, there's only parking on one side anyway. So they can't park on the other side. They have parking on the other side. So anyway, we can get into all those finer points. I'm sure.
Just I get what Councilor Goff is talking about. I used to live in all the.
We'll talk about it more. I got a lot to say on it. I'm pulling up average temperatures. I'm gonna do all this.
All right, very good.
I already have it. We've got, all we've gotten more snows every year since. So, and the temperatures have actually been positive. So, yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to environmental and something that's on everybody's mind, get an update on the CDY.
Backwards. So, update is that the water that's being made appears to be a really good color and low turbidity. Both storage tanks have been taken out of service and thoroughly cleaned. And that was a matter of flushing out whatever remaining sediment might be in the distribution system. Public Works has got a 5-week plan for doing that, started last week. Things went well. We're doing some more flushing again tomorrow. And hopefully that will remedy the situation. Knock on wood, there's been very few, if any, calls about this colored water recently, so hoping we're coming out of the woods soon.
I have a question, Your Honor. With those big storage tanks are a relatively new thing for the city, right? Did that ever happen when we had the open reservoirs?
Not that I know of. I wasn't as involved in the system back then. Discolored waters are uncommon in systems, comes and goes. Frankly, initially, when it first started this time, we figured out we're gonna do it for a few days and it'll probably go away. It didn't happen this time. So we realized there was something a little bit different. But I don't recall anything specifically about the open reservoirs, other than there were other issues like bird droppings getting right into the reservoir, ducks swimming, snow plows every once in a while, if they're going fast, but actually throw salt and sand and snow from the road into the residence.
Well, I just, I wondered if maybe that's a feature of these tanks, is that periodically they have to be drained and cleaned.
Yeah, you would expect to do that, and in fact, I think last year, tanks were taken out of service and cleaned. There was very little, if any, sediment found in the tanks at that point in time, so.
So all this happened to be taken the last year or so.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the test results we have are pointing towards that it's in iron and in manganese precipitate that somehow formed accumulated in the tank, and then during periods of higher flow would get drawn out into the system.
Now, we haven't started pumping out of our test well yet. Have we?
But not for use, no. It's been pump tested and the report's been submitted to the regulatory agencies to get their approval on actually taking the water out of the ground on a permanent basis. And we're in the process of finalizing the contract documents for constructing the power supply and transmission lines to that new well.
My final question is, do you think we will ever understand what cost is?
We're gonna have some theories that I believe are sound. Whether we'll know 100% for sure, it's hard to say. Usually when something like this happens, that's that persistent for that period of time, it's usually multiple things that are kind of going wrong at the same time. So it's been a learning process. We've learned a lot about our system. We've learned about some other aspects of the raw water quality and chemical feeds that we need to make sure that, we're looking at. But as of right now, there's no official determination. We're still working on that part. We're not done with that. Post-mortem, which is where we go back and say, okay, what do we think caused this? What lessons have we learned? And what are we going to do differently in the future to minimize the potential for something like this happening?
I think everyone in the city is grateful to you and to the DPW for the work they've done. Thank you.
That's our public works and then Mike Stowers and his guys for nonstop have been staying after this. And I know the public was frustrated. These guys are probably frustrated even more. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, John, what's the makeup of the pipe going from the reservoir up to the city? What was that made of?
So pipes from the reservoirs.
Yeah, I put back in the 30s, so I it's even before my.
Some were actually in the 1880s. There's a lot of cast iron. There's ductile iron, there's cement line, ductile iron. Those are the three main types, all different sizes and different ages. I think the newest of those, what we call the Broadwater Transmission, was probably put in the 1960s. That pipe can last a long time. It's not under a lot of pressure, but we do have plans for replacing some of the really old, more critical components of it under the WEA grant program.
Yeah, I think some of that was put in the 30s during the work progress.
Oh, yeah.
I think. I look at that, all of people's backyards now, it was probably pretty easy to run that pipe back.
Yeah, it's hard to know because you don't get to look inside of it. You don't get a TV camera in there or anything. So every now and then there's a break. We get a piece that comes out or a coupon gives us a little insight. So far, what we've seen surprisingly is the wall thicknesses are very substantial, and we're not seeing a lot of tuberculation or corrosion and stuff. So
It's pretty much a lifetime guarantee for me. Okay,
good.
thanks. Okay, moving on to 2.2, draft resolution, budget adjustments, general water and sewer funds, fuel, DPW and chemicals, wastewater plant and work. Okay, entertain a motion to move this to the Mayor Rosenquist, second, I'll second that. Any discussion on that item? If not, all in favor of moving this to the regular agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion is carried. 2.3 draft resolution authorizing Casella Organics residual management agreement, second amendment. Entertain a motion for that. In Rosenquist, I'll second that.
So the residuals from the wastewater treatment plant, I know it's biosolids, or some people call it sludge. We've got to get rid of that stuff. We've got multiple locations that we can take it to. The two primary locations are the Franklin County landfill and private facility owned by Casella Organics up in Chattagan. This is a modification to their agreement. They advised that under the agreement that exists provides for mutually agreed changes or termination. And they actually gave us notice of termination several months ago, saying the existing tip fees they were charging just weren't working for them. So through series of discussions and negotiations, we think $70 per ton tip fee, which is about $13 per ton more than we're paying now. We send a little over 2,000 tons a year to them usually, so we're looking at about $27,000 per year hit to the budget that we'll probably be talking about a little bit.
When did that start? I read the thing and I was kind of confused.
Going up there for a while. The first agreement was.
No, I mean, the raised. It sounded like it was down the road, but then you're saying it's sooner than that.
What's that?
What the raise in the tipping fee?
Or the provision, there's been provisions in the agreements for cost CPI adjustments. We've had successfully been able to talk to them over the years and say, hey, we don't want to do it this year. You still want our business, you know, they don't want that. They've gone along with that, but now their facility's pretty full. They got people coming in from all over. They're getting big money, and the tip fee we're paying is probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest, if we're charging anybody. There's places around Saratoga County, City of Schenectady, that are hauling their stuff up there, and City of Toronto. And overall, they're paying a lot more than we're paying. But we're going to be having more discussions in the near future about our long-term organics management, because wastewater residuals going to landfills, that time of that happening is fading, especially at the low cost of the plant. So we got to get ahead of the curve and make sure we've got a long-term management plan for that is feasible and economically works for us.
Based on this, anyone else have any questions on that? If not, proceed to vote on moving to the regular agenda. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion is carried. Now, did anyone have any injuries? Seeing none, is there any public comment? Seeing no one. Okay.
Very good. Very good.
Sorry.
I will say that I'll just have, honestly, I'm not gonna wash my hands or absolve myself in my office of it, but I think that for the parking discussion, Councilor Moore and Councilor Bob can hash it out, and I think any of us would be satisfied with that. No, yeah, no, maybe, right? Yeah.
Okay. No further business before this board. Entertain motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried. Meeting next week.
Great. Great. But we're gonna start at 4:45. It is now 5:45. We'll start with another 4 minutes or so.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Just enough time to read the cookies.
So we're gonna do